Hello everybody, my name is Stephen Bush and I'm with the Bush Law Group, and today I want to talk to you about post-loss obligations. Post-loss obligations are very important, and it's been my passion over the last year and a half to teach on post-loss obligations, because so often I find in my own practice that many times post-loss obligations haven't been met, and that is really the holdup to getting the policyholder paid. And so today I want to go over those post-loss obligations with you. But before we do that, let's talk about what are post-loss obligations. Post-loss obligations are duties that the policyholder has under the insurance contract when they have a loss. Now, those post-loss obligations are so important because non-compliance of a post-loss obligation may be a breach of the insurance policy by the policyholder. Right? So oftentimes we talk about how the carriers breach the policy, but the policyholder can also breach that policy too. Now, failure to comply with a post-loss obligation can result in non-payment, and nobody wants that, because that's what we're all here for, is to get the client, the policyholder, indemnified. So we're going to talk about these post-loss obligations and why they're so important in some other chapters today. But before we get into that, I want to say this. Listen, if you are a contractor, be very careful not to cross the unlicensed practice of public adjusting line. If you need to bring in a public adjuster to help you fulfill post-loss obligations, then you should do that. Or you can bring in an attorney. But be very careful and cognizant. So why am I wanting to talk to contractors about post-loss obligations? Well, because typically, and about 96% of the time, the contractor is the very first person that has contact with the policyholder after a loss. And I think it's important that you, as a contractor, know what those post-loss obligations are and that they need to be met, so that you can be cognizant of that when you're helping the policyholder or guiding them through the process of getting their home restored or their business restored. So, post-loss obligations. They're duties under the insurance policy that the policyholder must fulfill in order to get paid. So what are some of those post-loss obligations? Well, one of them, and probably the most important to me in the beginning anyway, is prompt notice of the insured's loss. So we're going to talk about that in detail. What is prompt notice? Does prompt notice, is it required in every instance? We're going to get into that. Secondly, mitigation of damages. The policyholder has an obligation under the insurance contract to mitigate the property and to prevent further damages from happening. But what is mitigation? How far can you go? What happens in mitigation of the damages? Can you get paid for mitigating those damages? Who's going to pay for them? We're going to talk about all of that in other chapters coming up. And then we're going to talk about the third post-loss obligation, which is show the damaged property. In other words, cooperate with the carrier, the insurance company. That is a duty. I know I hear online all the time people say, no, we don't cooperate, that's not our job, blah, 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 blah. That is your job. Read the policy. In most every instance that I've seen, those policies say that one of the duties of the policyholder is to show the damaged property and to cooperate in the investigation of the loss. Another post-loss obligation that you've heard me talk about online over and over and over, that is another big passion of mine, is proofs of loss. Why would you want to do a proof of loss? Is a proof of loss required? What happens when you submit a proof of loss? What do you need to submit with the proof of loss so that it's valid? What do you do when the insurance company, as they always do, rejects your proof of loss? How do you respond to that? We're going to go through all of those today in another chapter. And then the last proof of loss, the last post-loss obligation that we have to meet is examination under oath. What is an examination under oath? Should you hire an attorney to go with you? Who has to sit for an examination under oath? Is it the policyholder? What if they require the contractor or the public adjuster? Should they sit for an examination under oath as well? We're going to get into all of that in later chapters. But I want to say this. we're only going to talk about 5 post-loss obligations. That does not mean that there aren't many more post-loss obligations, because there are. But these are the ones that I feel like you encounter the most. Also, if you have a commercial insurance policy and you're working a commercial claim, you need to know that there may be completely different post-loss obligations or additional post-loss obligations that have to be met. So the real key here is read the policy, figure out what the policy says. Contractors, unlicensed practice of law, unlicensed practice of public adjusting. Be very conscientious of that, and engage public adjusters if you need to, all right, to help you to fulfill these post-loss obligations. So stay tuned. We're going to get right into prompt notice requirement.